When you wake up in the morning, do you feel drowsy or unrefreshed? Do you have trouble concentrating during the day, or do you have a lack of focus? Do you have memory problems? Do you have trouble remembering things? Do you have cravings for sweets or unhealthy foods? Has your get up and go got up and gone by 3 p.m? If any of that applies to you, you may have some problems with your sleep. In this episode, I'm going to be talking all things sleep, so stick around. I've got some recommendations that you may find very useful. Welcome to the Christian Healthy Lifestyle Podcast, where I help Christians over 40 maximize their health potential so they can age gracefully and live abundantly. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 164. Well, this is the final episode in my series on the 9 pillars of health, and we're going to be talking about sleep here. I want to explain why sleep is so important, and then I'm going to shift gears and we're going to talk about how to get a better night's sleep. Now, before we get started here, I'd like to talk about your podcast listening platform. Now, everybody has their favorite. I like to use Overcast, been using that for quite some time, but I'm going to encourage everybody to switch over to Spotify. Now, there's a reason why Spotify passed Apple as the number one podcast listening platform. Apple was king of the hill for quite some time, and no one ever thought that anybody could knock them off that number one position. But Spotify has done exactly that because they've been very innovative, very scrappy in coming up with new features, and I really think that that listening platform is excellent. A couple of reasons why I believe that is that they have not only audio on there, but video as well. Now, I spent a lot of time producing the videos on these episodes, and I put a lot of work into that, and it's a shame that most of the listeners are listening to the audio version only. Now, I get it. Podcasting is a great medium for listening on the go when you're driving or in the gym, mowing the lawn, those kinds of things. It's great for that. But if you have an opportunity, you might want to check out the video version, and you can do that right on Spotify. Another feature they put in there is you have chapters, and you can look at the timestamps and move directly to that portion of that episode. So if there's something you want to go back and review or listen to later, you can just skip right to that portion of the podcast, and that's a pretty good feature as well. And here's another cool feature. You can leave a comment there, and if you do, I promise I'll reply to it. So we have a little bit of an interaction there. You have a chance to be more of a community environment there. The Natural Nation here has very little opportunity to give me feedback, and you can do that right there on the Spotify app. I'm pretty sure right now, as of this recording, the only way you can leave a comment is to be using the mobile app, not the desktop version. But that's probably going to change in the near future. So anyway, I encourage everyone listening to switch over to Spotify. It's a great platform. The National Sleep Foundation says that adults between the ages of 18 and 65 should get at least 7 hours of sleep per night. Now, you know there's a lot of people out there that are just workaholics, and sleep is for losers, and I'll sleep when I'm dead. You know, you've probably heard those types of comments. Well, if that's your motto, you might be dead sooner than you think, because sleep is vital to our health and well-being. Psalm 127 verse 2 says, "In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves." So quality sleep is a gift from God, and we shouldn't disrespect that. We should treat sleep as the gift that it is, and we should respect that gift that God's given us. So why is sleep so important? Well, God has established a rhythm to creation. We see this right back in the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he'd been doing, so on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And we know that God doesn't need sleep. He wasn't tired. So why did he rest on the seventh day? Well, part of the reason is he gave us an example to follow, but God's not showing us how to be good little boys and girls and follow the rules as good as he does. That's not the point. He's operating in harmony with his design principles for creation, and that is that there's to be an ebb and a flow to our work and our rest, and he's just simply operating in harmony with that. Wouldn't it make sense that God would do that? He's not going to operate in a way that's outside of his design principles. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 says, "There is an appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every event under heaven. So there's a time for wakefulness and getting work done, and there's a time for rest and sleep and slumber. The sun rises, the sun sets. There's an ebb and a flow to creation, and we do well to embrace that. I often say in the show, we maximize our health potential by aligning our lives more fully with God's natural design for spirit, mind, and body. And this ebb and flow to our activity is part of his natural design. Most of us go through 6 or 7 90-minute sleep cycles throughout the night. Now, sleep has 4 stages to it. When we're awake, we experience brain waves that are a higher frequency and a lower amplitude. Now, as we move toward deeper sleep, those brain waves decrease in their frequency, but they increase in the amplitude, the height that we experience those electrical signals coming out of the brain. In stage 1, we call that light sleep, and this is the transition between wakefulness and sleep. It generally lasts about 3 to 5 minutes, and during this stage, our muscles begin to relax, our heart rate and our breathing slow down, and you may experience muscle twitching. That's a normal part of this first stage to sleep. Now, one of the things that I want to point out here is that you might be aware of your surroundings, but producing brain waves that are consistent with one of these stages of sleep. So sometimes we may think we're not getting rest, but we actually are, and that's been proven out in sleep studies. Now, in this first stage of sleep, the alpha brain waves start to decrease in frequency, but they increase in amplitude. The brain waves start to slow from the alert daytime pattern, and they move toward the unconscious sleep nighttime restorative pattern. Now, this stage of sleep is important because it helps our bodies and minds gradually disconnect from the day's activities. We're preparing ourselves to get more benefit out of the more restorative stages of sleep that are ahead. The better job we do here, the more restful sleep we'll experience later in the evening. So don't underestimate how important this first stage of sleep is, this transition stage. So stage 2 is deeper light sleep, typically lasts between 20 and 30 minutes. Here, our body temperature drops and our heart rate and breathing continue to slow, and we experience theta brain waves. The brain produces spindles or spikes of higher frequency brain waves during this stage, and this stage is crucial for memory consolidation and learning. That's why we're taught in Joshua 1:8 to meditate on God's word day and night, and in Deuteronomy 6:7, we're told to meditate on the word of God when we lie down and when we wake up. By meditating on the word of God before we fall asleep and reminding ourselves of those truths when we wake up, we're cooperating with our design and coming alongside our brain's capacity to consolidate the things that we've learned into a long-term memory. Take it from short-term memory and move it towards long-term memory. That's an important part of this stage of sleep. The next stage of sleep, stage 3, is deep sleep. It's also known as slow wave sleep. And this is where true restoration occurs. Our blood pressure drops, tissue growth and repair take place, immune system strengthening occurs, growth hormone is released, our memories are embedded deeper into the long-term memory. We experience delta brain waves, which are the lowest in frequency and the highest in amplitude. This is the most restorative part of our night's sleep. And this stage is vital for physical and mental emotional renewal. Now, the final stage of sleep is REM sleep, or rapid eye movement. REM sleep first occurs about 90 minutes after we fall asleep, and brain activity increases slightly, and this is where most of our dreaming occurs, and our eyes move rapidly back and forth, but our muscles are very relaxed and almost paralyzed. We're not moving much, our bodies aren't moving much, but our eyes move back and forth. It's very interesting. Now, here, memory consolidation occurs at the deepest level. And REM sleep is essential for emotional processing, creativity, and problem solving. So after REM sleep, we start the whole process all over again with light sleep, and we go back through another cycle. So this sleep cycling takes place, as I said, about 6 or 7 times throughout the night, and the cycle will last usually about 90 minutes, but it can go up to about 120 minutes. So we go through several of these sleep cycles per night where we start off in light sleep, we progress through to REM sleep, and then we start to cycle all over again. Now, the early cycles have more deep sleep in them than the later cycles do in the evening. So the first part of our sleep is actually more important in terms of restoration and renewal than the later stages of sleep that have more light sleep in them. This cycling pattern shows how complex God's design is for our rest and our renewal. We truly are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. So what are the benefits to good night's sleep? Well, one of the big benefits is our organs detoxify themselves. In the last episode 163, I talked about the lymphatic system, where our brains actually detox themselves using a cerebral spinal fluid. If you have listened to that episode, check out episode 163. Now, this brain detoxification system, the lymphatic system, it helps clear a protein called amyloid beta. And amyloid beta has been associated with cognitive issues like Alzheimer's and age-related dementia. So if you're concerned about cognitive decline with aging, a good night's sleep is a must. Another one of the more important things that goes on during sleep is hormone balancing. Our bodies produce growth hormone when we sleep, and growth hormone is important for muscle growth and muscle retention. It's also important for bone tissue integrity. Our bodies produce melatonin at night. Melatonin obviously promotes relaxation and better sleep. Another one of the hormones that gets balanced and produced during sleep is cortisol. Now, cortisol is a stress hormone and it has a little bit of a bad rap these days. Everyone seems to want to reduce their cortisol levels. And that is true if your cortisol is too high. But cortisol serves a very important role. It helps us wake up in the morning. It gives us the alertness that we need throughout the day. And it's an important part of our body's stress response. So we want to make sure our body is producing adequate amounts of cortisol, and we need good sleep to do that. Another important hormone that gets produced and balanced during sleep is leptin. Leptin is a satiety hormone. It tells us when we're full. And the other side of that coin is ghrelin, is the hormone that stimulates hunger. So we want to have proper leptin to ghrelin ratios so that we don't have unhealthy sweet cravings. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, that's one of the symptoms, that's one of the telltale signs that you're not sleeping well, is that you have excessive sweet cravings or cravings for unhealthy foods. It could be due to an imbalance between your leptin and your ghrelin hormones. So that's a really important part of what our bodies are doing when we sleep, is to balance our hormones and regulate our blood sugar metabolism. If we have blood sugar issues, we experience more of a roller coaster ride in our blood glucose levels going up and down throughout the day, and that can produce sweet cravings. Another super important bodily function that goes on during sleep is we enhance our immune function. Our bodies are constantly fighting off pathogens in the form of undesirable microscopic organisms like viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. So an important part of our adaptive immune system is our ability to fight off those invaders. Our bodies use killer T cells to do that. Now, in order for our T cells to do their jobs, they've got to adhere to the infected cell. Now, there's a cell adhesion molecule called integrins, and that molecule is a cell adhesion protein that causes the T cells to stick to that viral infected cell. And that process has to take place in order for the T cells, the killer T cells, to do their jobs and eliminate those pathogens. So more sleep helps our bodies become more of a hostile environment for pathogens. Good sleep also promotes apoptosis and autophagy. So apoptosis is programmed cell death. So you may be saying, well, Dave, why would I want my cells to die? I'm trying to be more healthy. Well, there comes a time where a cell needs to be discarded and replaced with new ones. So remember, cancer is uncontrolled cell growth. So sometimes our bodies want to eliminate unhealthy cells. So it does that through apoptosis, also through autophagy. Some of our cells are not ready to be completely discarded, and they can be rebuilt. That's where autophagy comes in. So autophagy is our body's cellular recycling system. It allows our cells to disassemble themselves and discard the parts they don't need and reuse the salvageable bits and pieces to make new, healthier cells. Now, this design is just absolutely exquisite. It's a super cool process, and it speaks to the idea that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and the fool says in his heart there is no God. We can't outsmart God's design with biohacking. We can only come alongside and support our God-given natural design. That's my approach to health. That's what naturopathy teaches, and that's what the Bible teaches, that we just get the obstacles out of the way and lean on that God-given built-in wisdom that our bodies have and allow them to heal themselves and to thrive. We've just got to get the obstacles out of the way. And for some of us, the obstacle is inadequate or poor sleep, which leads me right into, how do we get a better night's sleep? Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to avoid sleeping pills. Now, sleeping pills are highly addictive and they're toxic to our bodies, and they come with all kinds of side effects. According to the Cleveland Clinic, approximately 8 out of 10 people experience a hangover effect the day after taking sleeping pills. They feel drowsy, they have muddled thinking, and they experience dizziness and balance problems. Not the kind of thing we want to encourage when we're aging, right? Other side effects include constipation, diarrhea, dry mouth, headaches, muscle weakness, digestive issues like gas, bloating, heartburn, nausea. Most sleeping pills are antihistamines. Now, histamines are part of our body's innate immune response. So by blocking histamines with antihistamine drugs, we weaken our immune systems. Here's a study I found published in the journal International Archives of Allergy and Immunology. It's entitled Effects of Antihistamines on Innate Immune Response to Severe Bacterial Infection in Mice. Now, this was done in mice, but I think it's very applicable here. These researchers concluded this: our findings indicate that sedating first-generation H1R antihistamines and H2R blockers might impair innate immune response to bacteria, and that these drugs should be used with caution in patients with severe bacterial infections. So this study was done on mice, but it makes perfect sense to me that blocking a natural part of our immune defenses is not a good idea, not in the long haul anyway, but short term maybe. Now, I'm about to share with you some lifestyle modifications that will absolutely help with sleep. You should start there. We're going to get to those in just a moment. But there are natural alternatives to sleeping pills. If you're looking for some natural sleep aids, I have a sleep protocol on my full-script supplement dispensary. Now, all my protocols there have professional quality, medical grade, natural products only available through healthcare practitioners such as myself, and they're for my listeners, the Natural Nation only. On my sleep protocol, I've got magnesium on there that promotes relaxation. I've got lavender essential oil that's been proven in hundreds of studies to promote relaxation and sleep. I've got some homeopathics on there that are completely non-toxic and they don't have any addictive properties at all. I use these products from time to time myself. When I was an airline pilot, there was times when I needed a little help getting some rest because I had to wake up refreshed and ready to go. So I personally have found these products to be very, very useful in helping promote good sleep. Now, if you've already created an account on my full script dispensary using my link, you can log in and navigate to the multi-patient plans and you'll see all my protocols there. If you haven't created a full script account yet, go to my website, christianhealthylifestyle.com/protocols, click on the sleep support protocol, and you can create an account and you'll get instant access to the protocol, and you'll lock in a 10% discount for life and free shipping on orders over $50. You'll also be supporting the show when you do that because I get a small commission when you make a purchase. You don't pay any more. In fact, you get a discount. It's a no-brainer. You have my permission to pause this episode and go create your free account right now. I promise I'll be waiting here for you when you get back. So what kind of lifestyle modifications can we make to get a better night's sleep? Well, first and foremost is we want to respect our circadian rhythm. God has designed our bodies to be awake during the daylight hours, and drowsy and sleepy at night. Now, I recommend as much as possible going to bed and getting up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. Ideally, we want to wake up without an alarm clock. If you've got to wake up with an alarm clock, you're probably not going to bed early enough. Now, personally, I like to go to bed around 10 and get up at 6. That works pretty well for me. It doesn't always happen. A lot of times I'm waking up earlier than that, but that's what I'm shooting for, is somewhere between 10 and 6, and I don't need an alarm clock. I get up that time every day. It's not a problem. Another important thing to remember is our adrenal glands recharge themselves between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. So that's a good reason for getting to bed before midnight. We also get more deep sleep before midnight. So you want to get to bed before midnight. You can't just go to bed at 3 and get up at 10 or 11 and expect it to be the same type of restorative sleep that you get when you go into bed before midnight. It just doesn't work that way. Now, exercise helps, but you don't want to exercise within 2 hours of retiring, because that will stimulate your system. You'll produce cortisol, other stress hormones, and that could interfere with you falling asleep. Another thing I recommend is don't eat any food within 3 hours of going to sleep, because digestion is hard work. Our bodies are hard at work digesting their food. They have to process that food that we send down there, and we don't want our bodies too busy doing that kind of thing when we're wanting to rest. So we want to stop eating at least 3 hours before going to bed. Now, we want to prepare for a good night's sleep during the day. One of the best things you can do is when you wake up in the morning, if it's light out, go for a walk in the morning and face the sun. There's a pineal gland, which is right here on your forehead in between your eyebrows, and that helps to regulate your melatonin production, and the sunlight in your eyes and on your face will help to stimulate cortisol, help you wake up in the morning, and it'll get your circadian rhythm in sync with the earth, the natural rhythm of the planet. So this is very important to wake up well in the morning, because that will help prepare you for a better night's sleep. Another thing we want to do is limit alcohol consumption. Alcohol may help us fall asleep, but it makes it more difficult to stay asleep and spend more time in that deep sleep that we want. So alcohol is a depressant for many people. It's a stimulant for some, but it does act as a depressant, and it will interfere with the quality of our sleep. So limit or avoid alcohol if you can, especially later in the day. We also should try to avoid caffeine after lunchtime. Now, I know I like my caffeine. I like my Ethan's energy shots. In fact, I interviewed Ethan himself on episode 97. It was a great conversation. You can check that out, episode 97. I'll put a link in the show notes. But we should consume caffeine before lunch. Anytime after lunch, we should try to avoid caffeine if we're having any difficulty at all sleeping. Another thing, if you're having difficulty sleeping, is try not to nap during the day. Naps are great. I do them once in a while. But if you're having trouble sleeping, especially lengthy naps, longer than 20 minutes, could interfere with your nighttime rest. Another thing that interferes with nighttime rest is blue light from electronics or even light bulbs. One of the things we can do to fight back there is we can put our phones and our computers on nighttime mode, and they will reduce the amount of blue light they put out, and that will help us to relax in the night. The ideal light in the evening would be candlelight. There's research coming out that shows that it's not just blue light that stimulates us in the evening, but green light as well. Now, I use a pair of green and blue blocker glasses. I put my glasses on about 30 minutes to an hour before going to bed, and I'll start to feel drowsy after about a half hour wearing these glasses, no matter what I'm doing. Even if I'm on the computer or watching TV, these glasses will still help me feel drowsy and prepare my body for sleep. Now, they block out a lot of light, so don't use these if you're operating any machinery, especially driving a car, because all you're going to get is red light through. So red, green, and blue make up all the colors of the spectrum. So if you block out the red, if you block out the green and the blue, all you have left is varying shades of red. So things will look kind of strange through these glasses, but man, they really help with sleep. Another thing we should do to help us with sleep is to create a sanctuary environment in our bedrooms. I recommend that you don't have a desk with a computer or an exercise machine in your room. we should be treating our bedrooms as a sleep sanctuary. Okay, so as soon as we walk in, we start to feel that sleep environment. We don't want to be working and stimulating ourselves in our bedrooms. So I recommend if you have a TV in there, don't watch TV before going to bed. If you can, just take the TV out. It's really not useful. If you do have a TV in your room, don't watch the news before going to bed. Those people are experts in getting us wound up. That's the worst thing you can do, is watch the news before you go to bed. Another thing you can do to create a sleep sanctuary in the bedroom is put some houseplants in there. Good houseplants are peace lilies, philodendrons, and ferns. They'll help filter the air, produce more oxygen, and beautify the environment. It's nice to have. Another thing we should do is cool the room down. Research has shown that temperature between 65 and 70 degrees is probably ideal for most people to sleep. Our bodies have to lower our core body temperature in order to sleep well. So if the room is too warm, our bodies struggle to do that. You can also use some soft music. Another thing you might want to use is white noise. A sound device that produces rain or maybe water flowing through a stream. That could be quite relaxing and help induce a better night's sleep. It doesn't have to be going all night. You can just put it on a timer, let it go off after 30 minutes or something like that. So remember, our natural design is to be awake during the daylight hours and drowsy and sleeping at night. So one of the best things you can do to create a sleep sanctuary in your bedroom is get some blackout curtains. Now, you don't have to spend a fortune. I use some curtains called Nicetown curtains that I bought on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes. They're really good quality. They're inexpensive, easy to install. Now, make sure if you buy these curtains, you get the curtain rod that wraps around towards the wall, because you're going to have to block that light out as well. But they're really good. You want your room to be dark. We're designed to sleep in darkness. Ideally, you want the room so dark that you can't see your hand in front of your face. That would be the ideal sleeping environment. So I'll put a link to those Nicetown curtains in the show notes as well. Another thing we can do is use some essential oils. Now, I have a lavender essential oil on my sleep protocol on Fullscript. You'll need some type of essential oil diffuser. They're pretty inexpensive. You can find them everywhere. So essential oils can be useful. If I'm going to use essential oils, I'll rub them on my palms, put a few drops on my palms, rub my hands together, and take a nice deep inhale. You can also do the same thing to the soles of your feet. Very effective way of getting those essential oils into your system. Another thing we can do is take a warm bath an hour or so before you're going to bed. What happens in a warm bath is our bodies are trying to cool themselves, so the blood flow will go to the extremities and away from the internal organs. So when we get out and our body recovers from that, our bodies are set up to drop their body temperature as we need to do during sleep. So a warm bath can help. One of the reasons why a lot of people have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep is racing thoughts. But thinking about the events of the day or thinking about the things we have to get done tomorrow, there's ways to fight back against that. One of the things I would suggest there is journaling. If you write those things down on a piece of paper or in some type of a binder, you're giving yourself permission to let that go until tomorrow. So we can just clear our minds and not worry about that right now. Of course, prayer is going to help with this, right? If we pray before going to bed, I recommend focusing on surrendering everything to God, everyone and everything to God. We need to recognize that we're not in control, God is, and we should do something about the things we can change and leave everything else up to God. But again, writing those things down in a journal gives us permission to let them go for the moment. Another thing we can do to induce restfulness is some deep breathing exercises. So by doing deep breathing, we can stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest side. So what you want to do is take a deep breath, diaphragmatic breathing through the diaphragm, fill your lungs, and then hold that for a moment or two, then exhale. And as you exhale, you focus on relaxing the muscles that you're holding tension with. So the important thing here is you want to exhale longer than you're inhaling. The relaxation takes place during the exhale. It's very difficult to relax your muscles when you're holding your breath or when you're inhaling. So the important part of deep breathing for relaxation is to exhale longer than the inhale. Maybe inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 10. something like that. Another thing you can do is combine that deep breathing with visualization. So if you're thinking about your troubles and you've already journaled and you've given yourself permission to let it go, part of that letting go process could be visualization, where you say, okay, my problems are like the water that's spinning down the drain in the tub, and it's just flowing down the drain, and I'm just going to let them go. Or you might want to visualize a champagne glass with bubbles flowing up and just disappearing up to the top of the glass, and your troubles are just disappearing like the bubbles in a champagne glass. Those types of things can be quite useful as well. Now, another thing I recommend that will really help with promoting relaxation is emotional freedom technique. And way back in episode number 28, I talked with Dr. Katie Nall, and she's an expert in emotional freedom technique. And it's a series of tapping on acupuncture points, and you do an emotional release during this tapping, and it's super, super useful. It looks a little silly, but don't let that fool you. It's a very effective way to let go of stressful emotions. Another thing that we need to reduce in our bedrooms to create a sleep sanctuary is consider electromagnetic frequencies, or the electrical smog that's in our homes. You may have more wires in one wall than the other, so you'd like to move your bed away from the wiring in the walls if you can. You'll definitely want to turn down your Wi-Fi at night. Wi-Fi is electromagnetic frequencies that are flowing through the air. I understand how convenient Wi-Fi is during the day, but at least turn your router off at night. You don't need it when you're sleeping. That can help with sleep a great deal. Another thing that you might want to consider is an organic mattress. The toxins that we breathe in from the synthetic mattresses that we buy at the store can also interfere with our rest. You can also buy some earthing sheets. These sheets will plug into the grounding portion of your power receptacle and actually connect you to the earth. And that can also do a great deal towards promoting a good night's sleep. Another thing that you might want to consider is, if you snore, have a sleep study done, because you might have sleep apnea and not know it. It's a big problem for a lot of people. A high percentage of people actually experience sleep apnea and are not even aware of it. I talked about this in great detail on episode number 62 with Dr. David Shirazi. I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes as well. So that's my thoughts on sleep. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, would you consider sharing the episode with a like-minded friend? The easiest way to do that is go to christianhealthylifestyle.com/the episode number. This is episode number 164. Copy that URL and text it to a friend. If you're on Spotify, there's an easy way to share there as well. So that concludes my series on the 9 pillars of health. I hope you enjoyed listening. And make sure you tune in next week. I'm going to be talking about olive oil. I have a guest on the show that's a producer of high-quality extra virgin olive oil over in Greece. And we're going to be talking about how to find quality olive oil and what the health benefits are. You don't want to miss that one. That's it for now. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Go out there and live abundantly. I'll talk with you next time. Be blessed.